Oxford was one of those places for me that really solidified that modern feel. You're walking through an ancient, again, place that's several hundred years old with schooling and all these things. But we spent a good chunk of time telling some stories of martyrs who were there because people were burned at the stake for their faith. But we also spent time talking about guys like C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien. And for me, it was really this moment, because as I was growing up as a kid, my dad would read to me the Chronicles of Narnia series, and so that was my first connection to C.S. Lewis. From there, it spun into reading a bunch of his other works that he had, and he ended up being somebody that I kind of call a friend, even though I've never met him, but I've read so many things from him. And to sit there with our group and to be able to hear the impact that Lewis and Tolkien and some of these different writers had on their lives was just amazing. And then to hear the story, as Adam was telling it, of Tolkien helping Lewis get a job, and the reason why he didn't get a job in Oxford, and then realizing if Lewis hadn't done what he did, we wouldn't have had these books that would have gotten to us. And so you want to give just a quick overview of that. I want to spoil it if people go, but
yeah,
this was meaningful.
Yeah. Well, Rich, you're absolutely right. Oxford is a combination of ancient and modern. And actually, Oxford predates Cambridge. Cambridge in 1209 started as an offshoot of Oxford, but we know it probably in our day most broadly for the impact of its modern people. It's 20th century theologians of C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien, who were friends. Of course, Lewis was the agnostic. Tolkien was the Catholic believer who was sharing Christ with Lewis, and then they would take walks together almost daily. And there was a point at which Lewis describes the coins essentially kind of dropping in his soul. And it was on this place called Addison's Walk out behind Magdalen College. And we got to walk Addison's Walk. We got to walk that space where really the light began to shine into to Lewis's soul. And he began to realize that this global fascination with sacrificial love, with a hero who saves at the cost of his own life, that these stories that recur in all of the legends, all of the mythologies around the world, it couldn't just be chance. There must be something deeper in the human condition connecting with this story. He realized there was one story that was true, and it was the source of all these other stories. And that's how he writes about it. And then some of you may be familiar with the famous sermon of Lewis's, The Weight of Glory. We got to walk through the church where he delivered that sermon during the war. We got to be a walk in Magdalen College where he served in Oxford. And like you said, Tolkien was able to secure a position for him in Cambridge. But even though he had been spurned because he wrote for the masses at the cost of his academic career, but he gave us such a great legacy in his Narnia books, Mere Christianity, and all of the books that he wrote that are so helpful to us in our daily lives. And to see those spaces where he worshiped, where he worked. We actually got to go into his church, and we got to visit his grave and just see and go visit his house. We got to sit in his backyard and see what that looked like, and to walk the pond where he would swim, and to see these spaces where he lived, worked, swam, wrote, thought, repented, all of these things that gave us the books that we know and love, and that are continuing to shape our lives.
I was humbled in the moments of sitting and listening to people. I'd say a majority of our group had something to share. Most everybody had read Mere Christianity, and that had impacted them. It was just a cool experience. Oxford was a lot of fun.
At the Kilns, which is actually C.S. Lewis' residence for 33 years. This is where he would have been cultivating his creative imagination for the books of Narnia and otherwise. C.S. Lewis told us that God speaks to us and whispers to us in our pleasure, but he shouts to us in our pain. Pain is God's megaphone. So I'm so thankful to Lewis for giving us the legacy of incredible stories and characters like Aslan, but also reminding us of the difficulties and tragedies that God is with us and for us even in our valleys. So here we are at the Kilns where it all happened. are at Magdalen College in Oxford, where C.S. Lewis was a professor for many years. Of course, J.R.R. Tolkien was his friend. Lewis came from atheism, first to a theistic faith, and then from theistic faith to Christianity right here. And it has been an incredible journey for us to see why he came to faith, and then also how he used that faith, not only to speak to the elites, to the academics, but to all of us in his works that he made accessible for all.